Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be playing with toys, and we're going to be doing something called forced perspective to make these look somewhat life-size within the frame. To do this, we need to get very close with a very wide-angle lens. Today I'll be using a 20mm prime, and I will be getting just a few inches away from it, basically whatever that shortest focus distance is for that lens. Now there's a couple challenges that come along with doing this. One of those challenges is a very, very shallow depth of field. Even though we're shooting with a very wide angle lens, it really doesn't matter what our aperture is. Because we're so close, we're going to have a very shallow depth of field. So we can either take a couple of shots, one without the toy in, just focused a little bit further out, something like f11, f14, somewhere in that ballpark. And that will give us really nice depth of field, probably pick the hyperfocal point for that. And then we take another shot with the toy back in the photo, and with that we will probably do a little bit of a focus stack to get the entire toy in focus. Otherwise it'll look a little odd to have part of it in focus, part of it out of focus, but then everything else in focus. The other option is, and we'll do both, you can just embrace the shallow depth of field and just have the front of the toy. Both give some kind of interesting results, so let's see what we'll get. I found this location right down by this one lake here at the refuge. And one of the things when I do this, I try to position whatever the toy is in a way that is going to give it somewhat of a realistic look. Now in this case, really wish the grasses weren't there, but you never want to go and remove any living plants. So we're just going to deal with that. There really wasn't a view that didn't have it. This was kind of the one that was minimized the most. I do like the rocks in that. Given the size of the van in relation to the rocks, it looks somewhat believable. And the idea is not that you're going to create something that somebody's going to think it's a real van, but really more something that's a little bit more realistic and maybe make somebody think twice when they look at it, but obviously it's still going to look like a toy. In terms of the camera placement itself, I have found for these things, having the camera right on the ground works best. Now, you may or may not be comfortable doing that. That's kind of up to you. I have tried things like a platypod and that, but even with that, camera is at just at too high of an angle to really get what I'm looking for. Ideally, when I could shoot up on it a little bit, that works out even better. But most of the time, you don't have that luxury, so in this case I'm just shooting straight on. Here are the results of this particular shot. The first one is just with the shallow depth of field, and actually I think this one looks pretty good. I don't really mind it. A couple things that you have to be a little careful of when you're doing this is don't over sharpen, because that is going to make some of the things in the background maybe look a little bit odd. So I was pretty careful about that to keep the sharpening to a minimum. Now here is the shot with the focus stack. And I decided, instead of doing a composite and shooting it two different ways, to just do a complete focus stack and combine that using the Helicon focus stacking software. The reason I didn't use Photoshop is I have discovered that when you have a very smooth surface in a focus stack, the focus stacking capability inside of Photoshop does some very odd things, and you get some sort of strange blur areas. So Helicon, I find, works much better. And I do like this too, but I do wish instead of grass I had something else back there that resembled more of trees or that, but kind of take what you can get. One of the things I discovered looking at the footage that I took recently of photographing toys in nature, trying to make them look somewhat lifelike, was I left out some of the information for how I set up the shot. So I thought I would come back and just kind of redo that part. So at a different place today, Wood Lake Nature Center, and I have got a toy Jeep. I found a rock, little dried out stream drainage area. So it works out kind of nice, it's pretty clean. So I've got the camera set up 1 foot away from the Jeep. And it's actually measured from where the sensor is to the Jeep is that foot. So figuring out depth of field with a 20mm lens and also f14, I've got about 7 inches of depth for what's going to be sharp. So focusing on here, I should be able to get most of the Jeep, if not all of the Jeep sharp. I've got about probably this much area when you consider in front and in back, how much is going to be in focus. Have the rock, everything else should be nicely blurred. So other than that, camera settings, right now I've got half a second, f14, and ISO 100. So let's go ahead and take that shot. I'm just going to just tap there, and that should take it. Just going to do a few. It's always this kind of, just want to be a little careful when you're focusing this way with touching the screen. I think it might be a little bright, so I think I'm going to actually go for a little bit faster shutter speed. So I do have some highlights that I'm dealing with on the rock. So I think I'm going to go to about 1/8 of a second. I'll probably have to, well, I definitely will have to bring up the shadows quite a bit in post-processing, but I think with the rock in that, I think that'll work out a little bit better. So let's do a couple more of those. And I'm just going to now just take a look, see if that's nice and sharp. And if it is, we will just go with that. So histogram looks good. With the histogram, it is on the dark side, as you would expect, but I do have detail in the shadows. And I'm just going to zoom in once just to see if my Jeep is nice and sharp, and it certainly looks like it is. I can read the Rubicon logo, and if I zoom back out, actually it looks pretty good. I don't have to do as much work on the shadows as I thought. So it's a little bit more detail as to how I go about setting up the shot. By being just a foot away, it's going to make the Jeep look really big. 20mm, that wide angle lens also really helps to get that. And so here is what I came up with. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, or hit that subscribe button if you want to know more. There's also that little bell if you want to have more active notifications come up. And I will see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.